welcome to episode 71 of Brews Less Travel, the podcast exploring the best uncharted craft beer scenes across the country. I'm your host, Brian, and this is the first episode exploring our newest BLT city, Yakima, Washington. Hope you got the hints last week. Yakima is the home of American hops. I made an allusion last week that it's been tied into every month of BLT that we've done so far. And that's because 75% of the hops of the American hops that are used in the brewing industry are grown in Yakima Valley. So every month that we've had a hop forward beer, it is highly, highly likely, I would say almost guaranteed, that those hops came from the Yakima Valley. And we're most certainly going to spend a lot of time this month and this episode talking about everybody's favorite lupulin rich flower. But first, we should say hello to our new co-host for this month. He's a resident of Washington State, longtime Portland native, but also grew up in the Yakima Valley and knows a thing or two about beer. Please welcome my friend, Thom Roholt. How's it going, Thom?
It is going wonderful. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about all of the things that I learned running around as a kid in the great city of Yakima. Wonderful place. Shout out to St. Joe's grade school and sixth grade there. You're going to get a shout out every week, baby, because those some good times.
Shout out to St. Joe's. I think you should give the folks a little bit of background on your relationship with beer. How do you do with beer?
Oh, we are very intimate. I was a late bloomer when it came to beer. I didn't meet beer. I mean, I met beer in my teens, like most people, but like literally would drink like a quarter of a can and throw it into the woods to pretend like I drank a full one. But it wasn't until my mid-20s where craft beer started to like sprout up around the place, and there's actually some great flavor associated with that stuff. Grant's from Yakima was one of those first beers. Way back. And then it really accelerated back in 2009, where a buddy and I went to all the breweries that were open in one day in Portland on a sunny Saturday. And that was at the time 34 breweries in one day, which escalated very quickly over the next 6 years to going to eventually 50 and 77. So celebrating craft beer, being a part of it as much as I can. Brewers are rock stars to me, and love to taste what they come up with next. It's a very amazing process of coming up with new flavors.
77 breweries in one day. I don't think I've ever come anywhere near close to that.
Yeah, it's a quick in and out. Do a shot of beer essentially to say you drank something made on premises and move on to the next. Took about 19 hours, I believe, was the start and finish of it all.
Jesus, that's absurd. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that throughout the month. Shout out to our beer club subscribers. We got, like I said, a whole month worth of Wednesday activities for Yins, and a special how do you do to our new subscribers. Yins are keeping the lights on. We really appreciate the support with the beer club subscriptions. So we're going to kick off Yakima today, featuring Bale Breaker Brewing Company, and we're going to be enjoying two beers from them. We're going to be enjoying their Field 41 Pale Ale, as well as their Bottomcutter Imperial IPA. Plus, we're going to be joined by a guest from Bale Breaker. And without further ado, we're going to bring our guest on. So please join us in welcoming the co-founder and brewmaster of Bale Breaker, Kevin Smith. How's it going, Kevin?
Hey, can you guys hear me, see me?
Yes, we can.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. So,
Thanks for joining us.
Very, very excited. Glad you guys are highlighting, my hometown and what we believe is a awesome town for craft beer. And so I'm glad that people from outside of the Pacific Northwest here, get to see a little bit of what we do here in the Yakima Valley. So thank you for featuring.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to have your brewery as one of our featured breweries, and a pleasure to have you tonight on the show. Let's get into our rapid fire questions here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Real quick, chat. Someone had a good suggestion for a name for this section last week, and I completely forgot it. So throw it in the chat if you're here again. But anyways, Kevin, you ready?
Ready.
Cool. We get through this, and Thom and I get to open up our first beer. So first one, favorite non-Bale Breaker beer.
Oh, I'd probably have to say, I could go so many different directions, but honestly, I'd probably have to say Bodhisattva from Georgetown Brewing out of Seattle. I see it a lot around. It's a GABF gold medal winner. Kind of awesome take on like kind of new modern hybrid styles of IPAs, kind of stealing a little from West Coast, or stealing a little bit from hazy, but really like West Coast influenced. And it's just a solid beer, high quality all the way around. If you can get your hands on it, you won't be disappointed.
Nice.
Beautiful packaging as well.
Yes, definitely. And with that question, I could talk about that for like 10 or 15 straight minutes. So yes, but that was one that comes to mind. So.
Other than beer, wine or cider?
Very good question. I do thoroughly enjoy both, especially being in the Yakima Valley. We have like well over like 100 very, very high class wineries, and also along with hops and wine grapes, we grow a ton of apples. So I totally love both. If I really have to pick, I would probably say wine, but that's a really, really close one for me, especially because with our bar over in Ballard in Seattle, we partner with Yonder Cider, who is honestly one of the best cider makers I've ever come across. Their ciders are flawless and unique and awesome. So that one's another hard one, but I do enjoy it, depending on kind of what I'm looking for. Sometimes, a nice red is very good, but a crisp dry lager or a cider is sometimes hard to beat too.
All right. Favorite hop?
Favorite hop, I would probably say Simcoe, probably for its versatility. I use it in a ton of beers. Although Citra is a very, very close second for me. So
cool. Kevin Smith, I have to ask you, I have to make one joke about this. Totally. Or Mallrats.
Honestly, Dogma. I love it.
Yes.
That's a hidden gem.
Oh,
Dogma
okay.
is so good. But between those two, probably Clerks. But right. Dogma is one of my favorite out of Kevin Smith's universe. So
Thom, I know you enjoy films as well. Same question.
It's Dogma for me as well. I would definitely gone off board. Quick joke or common thing that I was going to say if we had more time to introduce Kevin Smith. I've actually hung out with the filmmaker Kevin Smith playing hockey.
Oh, no way.
And
awesome.
And I was going to be like, oh, Kevin Smith, the filmmaker. I didn't know he owned a brewery. But, that's a tired joke there. But yeah, Dogma for me was definitely, again, shout out to St. Joe's and Yakima. Catholic upbringing. If you don't like Dogma, you got to have it. So
right. And shout out, I did like that. Shout out to St. Joe's. My nephew, who will one day be taking over the farm, a future farmer, just started in St. Joe's this fall. So he's 6, and he was sad that he had to get pulled away from the hop farm to go to school. So I think he's got his head on straight. So
yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, shout out to Catholic school upbringing. Anyways, I went to Catholic school growing up too. So there we go. Yeah. Final rapid fire question, Kevin. Have you ever seen a UFO?
I one time in high school, one of my buddies lived on top of one of those foothills that you actually see behind you, behind our brewery, and they always had binoculars. And I vividly remember me and my buddies all passing them around and honestly seeing something that none of us could could say what it is, and still to this day I have no idea. So that to me was totally an unidentified flying object. I don't know what it was, but I do remember that. We were probably about 12 at the time, and that is still ingrained in my memory. It's like, did I see what I really think I saw? But yes,
Wow.
so maybe we'll see. The jury's out. I was young, but
Wonderful. Those are great answers. Thanks for playing along through the rapid fire questions. Let's open our first beer here. Field 41 is a pale ale brewed with Simcoe, along with a variety of other American hops. Kevin, what else would you like to tell us about this beer?
Yeah, Field 41. So that's one of our flagships. It's typically been right around our number 2 bestseller behind Topcutter IPA, our leading flagship. It was one of the 2 beers that we opened with, and that we've made literally every day since inception of Bale Breaker. For us, it was a little bit of a, I don't exactly know what to say, but it was a little bit of a stretch when we opened. We opened about 10 years ago or so, and most of the beers, pale ales at that time, like I grew up falling in love with like Sierra Nevada Pale, like probably a lot of people did, and up here in the Northwest, at that time we had Manny's, which is Georgetown, their original flagship, and that was kind of one of those traditional kind of pale ales that you might think of that was a little bit more malt forward and a little bit less on the hoppy side. And so when we were opening, we really wanted to do something that was different. And I remember joking around with my brother and brother-in-law when we were trying to kind of come up with the recipes and what we wanted to do. And I thought pale ale was the most broad term. I mean, to me, it was just like a lightly colored top fermented beer. I mean, that was basically what I thought. I was, hey, we got a lot to work with here, and so we kind of pushed it a little out of the realm of what people were thinking pales were at that time, where it was almost bridging on like the session IPA. And so it's very low in SRM. It's really not a ton of malt. We do use a little bit of oats and wheat, not in the sense that you'd think of like a hazy IPA, right? But just enough to try to give it some body. And then, featuring big charges of Simcoe to get like a little bit of pine and grapefruit. And then we pair that with a tannum and laurel. So the laurel's bringing like a little bit of light citrus and some nice floral notes, while the tannum being a little more subtle, but like very kind of orangey is what we typically get from a tannum. So it's kind of a little bit of a delicate beer, but because it's kind of so light in body, it drinks pretty similar to an IPA, but it's only about 5% alcohol. So it's kind of like a little, I don't know, I don't want to steal the term from my buddies at Founders, but kind of like an all-day IPA. So, you can just drink it and low in ABV and crushable. It's kind of we've also kind of said kind of like the Hopheads light beer. And so,
I like that.
Awesome. So before starting Bale Breaker in 2013, your family had close ties to the brewing industry.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that family history? I'm assuming it has a lot to do with farming, considering what we just talked about.
Yeah, totally. No, totally. We have a unique backstory, right? And so my great grandparents first planted hops on our family farm in 1932. They planted 5 acres of hops. It was the year before Prohibition was ended, so they were either running around with the wrong crowd or very smart with where the markets were going, right? And so they planted it in actually that same 5 acres. We have continuously farmed every single year since 1932. My great grandfather and great grandmother ran it and grew it over the years, and my great grandfather passed away when my dad was 19 and off away at college. When he passed away, my father dropped out of university, came back and ran it with his grandmother, my great grandmother, up until she wanted to retire, and he's been running it ever since. So, if he was about 20, I think that this was his 48th consecutive harvest on the farm. And so he's been doing it for a long time. He was a very, very
That's
brilliant,
serious.
very, very brilliant agricultural entrepreneur. He took what they started and grew it into something large. And so also through that path, he was also a part of some of the founding members in Yakima Chief and Hop Union. And he also helped start along with some other farms, a breeding program in the Yakima Valley that was called Select Botanicals. It then merged with Haas's breeding program to form the Hop Breeding Company. So he's had a big play in this industry for many, many years. And as he'll never be able to not be on the farm, but as he's kind of riding off into the sunset, my older brother is now running all of our agricultural operations. And so I guess that kind of leads us to about 10 years ago when Bale Breaker, the inception of Bale Breaker kind of happened. So I was brewing over in Seattle. I was in my early 20s at a brewery called Two Beers Brewing Company. And my sister and her husband were over in Coeur d'Alene. He was working in sales and she was working at Coeur d'Alene Cellars Winery. And my sister and her husband kind of came to us and they're like, hey, we got this great idea. Like, let's open a brewery on the hop farm. And we're all kind of like,
makes sense.
Let's, and they're saying like, hey, there's hundreds of wineries in the valley and they're all like in vineyards and like no one's ever done it with hops. And so I was super stoked to be able to like kind of start crafting my own beers and making my own beers. And so my dad and brother got on board. My brother helped write the business plan and kind of off we went. And so we with the picture behind you there, that's the brewery that is actually Field 41 that we're in. So that's the name of the pale ale, is the actual hop field that the brewery is located in. And so if it happened to be Field 26, our pale ale would be named Field 26. But so that's where the name came from. There is just kind of a nod to our actual physical location.
That's awesome. That family lineage is unbelievable. You have a very modest telling of the impact that your father has had on the industry. Those companies are responsible for a lot of growth and a lot of the IPAs and hop forward styles that have brought forth the craft beer revolution. So that's really cool. What does your dad do in hop harvest these days? Like it's intense, right? It's a manually intensive job. Like
totally. I mean, we all grew up on the farm. My dad, had us working harvest, and so he made sure all three of us were very competent and capable dryers on the hop farm. It's a very, very important, probably the most important step in the harvesting process, is drying it out to the right moisture content so the hops are stable. And so you can usually see my dad, kind of like poking around in the kilns. He really likes that. And that's kind of the data hub on the farm too, is seeing all the kilns and their moisture contents, and that's where they're tracking like bales to acre and stuff like that. And so typically these days he's doing that. When I was a kid, he was pulling 15, 16-hour days every day during hop harvest. I don't see him doing that as much anymore. He's earned it. He can slip out. You might find him on the golf course a couple times a week, and so he's definitely earned that. And so my brother takes on more of the heavy lifting these days, but he's always around. He's still there, every morning at 5:30 during harvest to see shift change, and that's that's something he it's in his blood. he'll he'll never leave it, even if he's in a walker and we're pushing him around the field. So
That's great. So when designing beers like Field 41 or your Top Cutter IPA, which you've mentioned, how does being so close to those raw materials play into that process?
Yeah, totally. You know, for us, it's we have a couple benefits that other breweries don't, obviously, and we have one or two small drawbacks, but we one of our massive benefits is we get to see the hops come out of the ground and go all the way to the wire. And my brother and dad are in the fields constantly. You know, they're letting us know when we think like a good Simcoe or Citra field might be falling, and to keep an eye out on it. And so we do get to see the crop all year. You know, it's in our backyard. We're always talking about it and doing stuff. So obviously that's a big help. We're obviously also kind of like on the cutting edge of new hop products and experimental hops, and so it's always nice to be a part of like what's new and innovative. But then in terms of selection, you know, we smell all of our hops off of our farm before they would get to Yakima Chief, and so then we would pull what we would like our selected lots before they would actually make it to the warehouse. So that's obviously a benefit as well, although we're only ever looking at our two farms. And so we only get to see two farms, and, you know, someone else from Seattle or New York or something that travels to Yakima for selection might be able to have a table with 7 or 8 different farms, you know. And so although I am highly biased, I think that my dad and brother grow very good hops, so I'm not disappointed in only smelling there. So I guess in terms of like the recipe creation side of it, is I guess we approach hops here and I know a lot of brewers do, but our philosophy is that every hop addition is important, right? Like we don't just like throw IBUs at a bittering charge. Like we're very purposely picking bittering hops because of their bittering characteristics. And so like in Field 41, we use it's one of my favorite bittering hops is Simcoe. It was bred to be a bittering hop, and its alpha wasn't high enough, and the drawback was that it smells awesome. So like so it's got all of these great bittering characteristics, and it's low in cohumulin, so like it's got this very gentle bitterness that where, you know, if it's calculated at 50 IBUs, the cohumulin makes it taste possibly even less than that, where a high cohumulin hop might also be bittered at, you know, to 50 IBUs, but it might taste more like 75. And so that's just kind of how it comes across on the palate. And so that's one of our very or one of the things that we think about in every recipe is it's not just about the dry hop or the whirlpool or the aroma. It's how every hop is introduced and layered through the process, and that there's a purpose for it at every single edition. And so
awesome.
Yeah, so you got to go back kind of full circle when you guys opened up back in Seattle last year. What was that like? How did that make you feel to like return to where, I guess I mean, not necessarily your brewing roots, but like where you got your start as a brewer?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I lived in Seattle for 7 or 8 years, and that was my, you know, that was where I decided, you know, that's where I decided that brewing was going to be the career path I wanted to go on. It's where I learned commercial brewing. And so being able to open a bar over there, or, you know, a tap room and brewery that I hope will be brewing on actually soon. That's been a long process, but that's for another day. But it was really, really exciting, and being able to be a part of the like Ballard Brewing District was really, really exciting. I mean, it's such a cool area, and I've got so many friends that, you know, have spots down there, and just being able to be in that mix and be a part of that community. Like we're just so ecstatic to be able to do that. And so, and Seattle's one of my favorite cities on the planet. So being able to go over there and do the build out and spend a lot of time over there, it was a total joy for me. So very, very happy that we did it. Love everything about it. And so, so yeah, I guess now it's what city is next. So
How big of a system are you going to have in that facility?
And so we have a 7-barrel system in place, and so we took the spot over from Populux Brewing, and so we took their brew house over, remodeled all the tap room and outdoor area with Yonder cider, and so it's a 7-barrel brew house. It was all in there. We're kind of getting everything cleaned up because it hadn't been brewed on for a while, like during the build out. And then essentially what it kind of has come down to is we've run into some issues with the city on some like permitting stuff for our glycol chiller. And right now we have to turn our glycol chiller off at 10 p.m. so we can't hold a fermentation. So we're working with them to work on getting the decibels down. And I think we finally, in the last couple of weeks, got the decibels below, and now they just need to come out and test it to approve it. And then, so hopefully this fall we'll be able to start brewing over there. And what we'll do over there is a lot of just fun stuff. I've got a really talented brewer that's on staff leading that project over there, and it'll be a nice little playground for him, you know, kind of doing a lot of fun stuff that we may not do in Yakima, and being able to showcase it over there. So.
That's interesting. I mean, it is kind of a residential neighborhood over there. I spent about the same amount of time in Seattle as you, and just looking, I mean, Rubens and Stoop and Obeck being all in that kind of neighborhood, you would think totally. That how noisy can it actually be, right?
Oh, totally. And it's just one of those things. But yeah, there's like a townhouse next door, and like the balcony is about like 20 feet from our glycol chiller. So I'm like, okay, I do understand that. So we gotta get it all squared away. So it's nice and quiet. We want to be good neighbors. So
good luck.
We're doing everything.
Good luck.
Let's take a beer break. Yakima's history can be traced back to the early 1800s, but one story in particular caught my eye. The expansion of the West was heavily dependent on railroad companies, and the small village of Yakima City was no exception. By the 1880s, the village had a courthouse, multiple businesses, and about 2,000 residents. But despite that, the Northern Pacific Railroad Company decided to build their stop in the Yakima Valley about 4 miles north of the existing village. The railroad offered to pay to move the existing buildings north to the new town called North Yakima, and the residents of Yakima City eventually agreed, although some were more reluctant than others. The plan was to set existing buildings on top of large logs and use mules and horses to pull the structures to North Yakima. But here's where it gets interesting. This move took a very long time, and most of the businesses remained open during the move. Yakima City effectively became a rolling city where folks looking to do business would hitch to the rear of a moving building, conduct their business inside, and then exit the building as their horses and wagons followed along slowly. North Yakima eventually officially became Yakima in 1918, and the rest is history. I think it's about time to open our second beer here. Bottomcutter, another year-round offering from Bale Breaker, Imperial IPA, 100 IBUs. What would you like to tell us about this beer?
Yeah, Bottomcutter is a fun beer for me. It was our third year-round beer, or third beer that we released, and yeah, for us it was just a little bit more of like really trying to meld hops in with the most like minimal malt backbone that you could theoretically get away with in a Imperial IPA. And it's also kind of just like a kitchen sink of hops. We like there's a ton going on. It's really unique, and I really do love this beer. It's actually been one of the ones that we've tweaked the least over the years, because it's just it's always kind of been what we intended it. You know, sometimes some of our you know, other IPAs are like, as tastes change, we might like try to slowly evolve to match with consumer taste. But Bottomcutter, we just kind of always let it go. We want it to be a dry, light IPA, and it's just it's a smorgasbord of hops. I mean, it's Citra, Mosaic, Equinox, Simcoe, a little bit of Warrior for bittering. I mean, there's quite a bit going on, and there's no one hop that is really the star of the show. They kind of all play together. And so, but it is, I would say, you know, it is a little bit, I won't say old school style, but becoming older, in terms of what it was. I felt like when it came out, it was relatively a fresh take on Imperial IPAs, and but no, this one's just, it's always been near and dear to our heart. It's probably the closest award-winning beer ever that has never won an award. I think that every time we have entered it into like national competitions, 100% of the time it has been entered, we have gotten the things back from the judges that was all quality beer, no flaws, great aroma, moved to the final round, did not place. We are so close.
Well,
so it's
two things. I will keep my fingers crossed, because as we're recording this on October 5th, GABF judging is currently taking place, or they may have already finished. So
yeah, it is sometime this week. Totally.
Yeah. And then also, I love entire craft beer scene across America, but these, in my mind, are the beers that the Pacific Northwest does better than anybody else, and that
Awesome.
I can't really find of this quality and consistency anywhere outside of the Pacific Northwest. And it's if it's a quote unquote old school style or becoming a old school style, I'm glad that, you know, Seattle, Yakima, Portland, Bend, they're carrying that torch, because this is a wonderful beer.
Totally. And you know, out in the Northwest, we didn't embrace hazies as they kind of rose to their status that they are now, and it's an amazing take on a hoppy style. I love hazy IPAs, but you know, there's something about just the clear, bitter kind of West Coast style that we all love, and that's what a bunch of brewers out here we want to keep making. I mean, we love that. That's kind of where our roots are. Is just, you know, is just dry, crisp, bitter, and kind of let the hops shine that way. And so, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Is there anything, while you drink this beer over the course of its lifespan, like on day 30 versus day 60 versus day 90, do you find any of the other hops taking over in the flavor profile or anything like that comes around, since you have such a smorgasbord of hops in there? And did you design it that way too, I guess, would be the follow-up to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I believe when it's you know, kind of in its like first 30 days, to me it's a lot like brighter. You know, it's probably some of the citra or the tropical fruit from the Equinox kind of popping. As it ages, I do believe that like the Mosaic has a lot of lasting power. So like, kind of as it ages, you still have this kind of dankness, or, you know, like roughness that I kind of get out of Mosaic that I am a big fan of. And so yeah, it does totally evolve through its life. And the hop bill wasn't necessarily written with that in mind. I think that was just a positive outcome as we were doing aging trials, but it was more the like creation of the recipe was actually more designed around the malt. So as the malt aged, it didn't get sweet. And that was one thing that I didn't like about some of the Imperial IPAs at the time was when you had them at like 2 weeks old or 3 weeks old, like at the tap room, they were phenomenal. But you got them in well, I guess back then it was mostly like bottles. You got them in a bottle, and and it might have been 2 months old, and it kind of, the hops had died, and like this kind of crystal or caramel malt was kind of taking front and center. And the way that we crafted this particular beer was as it aged, we wanted to avoid those caramel sweet flavors and kind of still let the hops be out front. And so that is one thing that I think Bottomcutter is a very does very well, is that it with our distributors, we have like 120-day shelf life on it, and it lasts for a very good portion of that before you kind of see it start to turn, where definitely some of our other brands, they are phenomenal, in the first 30 days, sometimes even better in the next 30 days, but can fall off pretty quickly from what the intention was. And so, but I think that Bottomcutter is a good example of a beer that can kind of last with or stay true to its inception as it ages, or conception as it ages.
The can I have is 36 days since packaging, and I would say it's hitting a very, very nice spot.
That's definitely right in the window for Bottomcutter, I would say, because another thing that we do a lot here that we do talk about is for some of these hoppy beers, particularly the West Coast hoppy beers, IPAs and Imperials, is on packaging day out of the bright tank, they actually probably shouldn't be good. Is like it should be too green and it should be too bitter, because there's a very small chance that it's going to find a consumer's hand in the first 14 days. And so oftentimes, with our distribution unit or distribution footprint and everything, like we do a 1 week hold at the brewery for quality and micro check. Then our distributors typically, are holding 10 to 14 days of inventory. So oftentimes the consumer, when they get it, the like freshest they'll get it is about 21 days. And that's kind of when we want some of these beers to be like peaking. And so the like 48-hour old sensory beers oftentimes are like, whoa, this is a lot to handle. But that is the point. And so like it can get to that like 3 or 4 weeks and start shining, because that's when the majority of the customers will probably be cracking them open. And so but yeah, that's not always doable, but that is something that we strive for. So.
Nice. You had mentioned evolution in the thought of that beer. You recently kind of evolved yourself and launched the Gaze Cannabis Company. It specializes in cannabis-infused seltzers. Is that? Tell me a little bit about the sourcing process and how does that compare to beer when you're doing that?
Yeah, totally. It very unique, very different set of laws and regulations. And so kind of the concept around Gaze was that, like you look back and across like civilization almost, I mean, you can go back like through recorded history, and a lot of meetings of people they're all done over beverages, right? You meet someone for coffee, you meet them for afternoon tea, you go grab drinks or cocktails, glass of wine. It's like everyone converses over drinks, and cannabis has never had a seat at that table. Like, even just as recent as 5 years ago or whatever, cannabis users were still kind of, you're at a party, well, you have to step outside to smoke a joint, well, now you're leaving the party and now you come in and you kind of stink, and like you're a little more crossfaded than everyone else. And so like always had this stigma. And so what we're trying to do is find a way that people can enjoy cannabis for whatever reason. Either they love cannabis, they want to take a break from alcohol, they don't drink alcohol, they're gluten intolerant, and they don't want beer, but something that can be delivered to them in a format that they're used to. And so you can drink a 12-ounce can of it, and it's not over the top. Our Sun Gaze seltzers are 2.5 milligrams of THC and 5 milligrams of CBD in a 12-ounce can. So it's a very introductory dose. You can have one. The way that we make them too is using nano emulsified THC. And so the THC is an oil, right? It doesn't mix with water. And so by using like sonomechanics, and you can get the THC molecules down so small that they can actually get encased into a droplet of water, so they can become water soluble. When the THC molecule is that small and you drink it, it then absorbs into your stomach lining through the same pathways as alcohol. So your onset is the same. It only takes 10 minutes to get to your brain and through your bloodstream, much like alcohol does. Whereas if you have an edible, and I'm sure a lot of people have had this, where you eat an edible, when you eat an edible, it goes to your stomach breaks it down, then that goes to your liver, then your liver sends the THC through. So that's why there's that 45-minute to an hour lag. And a lot of times I'm just as guilty as probably a lot of people, is like, this isn't working, and you eat another one, and 45 minutes later you're like, I can't get off of the bed, and now I'm fully lost. And so we're trying to find an approach to be able to maybe bring cannabis a little bit more mainstream and be able to introduce it to people. We like to refer to them in our internally as the canna curious. So the people that want to try, but maybe they've had bad experiences with edibles, or they don't want to smoke something, and so just delivering it in a way that is something that they're more used to, more socially acceptable, as opposed to taking a bong rip or something like that. So and so kind of then how that came about was the kind of ownership group of Bale Breaker and a couple other people, we purchased into an existing cannabis company called Painted Rooster Cannabis. And so we bought 50%, and we're running the drink line and kind of coming in and putting drinks into the portfolio. But we still grow 60,000 square feet of outdoor cannabis. We do flower, we do pre-rolls, we do all of that stuff. And so we're very interested in the cannabis space and how it's gonna go in the future. And so we kind of just wanted to get in because we believe that, or at least I believe, and our group does, that there's a market for cannabis beverages, and especially if some federal red tape falls in the next few years or something, that there could be a big play for cannabis drinks if it's done right, and if it's something that's approachable for kind of any consumer. So
yeah, I think that's how it does become mainstream, because it should have a place at the table. It is a very social
totally
drug. I hate to use the word drug because it's not like,
yeah, right.
it's a
right.
It's like coffee to me. In my mind, it's always been so similar to coffees, like it affects some people really, really strong. It affects some people very mildly. Some people can drink 7 cups of coffee in a day and be fine. Some people could smoke, some people could be like Snoop Dogg and smoke like 7 blunts in a day. And,
right, exactly.
Somewhat functioning through life, but making it something that is palatable, that can be enjoyed in that party setting, in a communal setting, that it isn't like, hey, let's go do gravity bongs, out behind the garage so nobody can see us.
Totally.
Let's enjoy this beverage with like fruit and stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing to fall in line is cocktails, and it becomes that.
100%.
Yeah. Do you see? I think for me, the next logical step, then you're so ingrained in beer and hops and everything around that world. When does cannabis infused beer actually become accepted, and is there a pathway, or is that something that's way
Oh,
far ahead.
I to be honest, I hope it's closer than it may seem. I know that it's going to be very difficult for governments to wrap their head around having THC and alcohol in the same thing, which I totally understand. But I do believe if we're able to keep the THC out and whatnot, that there is a place for cannabis in beer. The overlap of terpenes in hops and cannabis are so unbelievably overlapped, and that you could almost open a Pandora's box of new aromas and things that could just play in a beer. I mean, if you're able to even just like extract certain terpenes out of the cannabis, I mean, which you can now, but I know that you kind of start getting into some weird gray areas with like what's you can actually put into beer. But I mean, you could completely change the aroma of beers and glasses, and it's something that I'm very intrigued about, very interested in. I think that there is a future for it. One of the things that I wish we would be able to master, but we have not been able to, is figure out how to make a very, very tasty non-alcoholic IPA and put THC into it. And so you literally get the taste of beer and hops, but get the cannabis high instead of the alcohol high. And so yeah, I think it would be really, really interesting. I think that there is a path forward for both. I really hope so. And it's just going to kind of take a few years of just navigating the legal framework and playing within the bounds and being good stewards of cannabis, so we don't get it taken away from us.
You gotta reach out to the folks from Coalition Brewing, which is now defunct, who had that Two Flowers IPA, which was more of a CBD piece, and they obviously had some legal hurdles with that. But totally. That was that aroma that you got from that because of using the oils from the flower was pretty amazing. So
and I mean,
there's a spot for it.
No, totally, and I mean, I don't think that any scientists have been able to actually fully wrap their mind around the amount of like terpenes that are in hops and cannabis. There's just so much going on, and they're both so complex aromas that if we're able to steal and be able to use some from the cannabis, it would totally add another arrow in our quiver. It'd be super cool.
Well, it sounds like you all are the folks to do it. That was some super sciencey stuff to talk about how you could get that water soluble version of it to get it into the seltzer. So
exactly.
So moving back to Yakima, Palm Springs of the Pacific Northwest, this was once a slogan that they tried to use. What's one thing you wish what Yakima was more well known for?
Good question. A few years ago, I probably would have said beer, but I think that our friends in the Valley right now are just pumping out awesome beers after awesome beers, and so that one has been realized. And so I would probably say, to be honest, I believe that Yakima is like an awesome outdoorsman's hub that it oftentimes gets overlooked. I think it could be something that is similar to a Bend, Oregon, but people don't associate it the same way. I mean, we have all the fermentation things that are going on that Bend does, but I mean, we've got ski resorts 45 minutes away, amazing hiking less than that. We've got rivers, fly fishing. We've got great mountain biking in our backyard. Mount Rainier's 90 minutes away. Like Mount Adams is 2 hours. Like it's awesome outdoor hub. And so I think a lot of people think about Yakima as like this agricultural hub, which we are known for, which we do excel in. But there's this little like hidden gem of it kind of being an outdoorsman's paradise, that's actually easier to get to some of these very cool areas of the Pacific Northwest, like actually easier than some of the more traditional outdoorsman hubs. And so that's one thing that I wish people would know a little bit more about us. I mean, it's got a lot going on. We get a lot of sun. A lot of people think about Washington and think rain, but we're in the rain shadow. And so
You're in the different, you're in the other
part. Right. We're just on the eastern slope, so all the rain just passes over us, then recollects in the Rockies and dumps out east. And so we get this little dry break, and so it's nice.
Makes for good farming.
Oh, totally. I mean, if there wasn't modern irrigation, the only thing we could grow is sagebrush, but it's beautiful with the advent of modern irrigation. And so and then I guess that kind of goes along with that is slowly, it seems each year our food scene is getting better and better, kind of people taking pride in the fact that we're growing a lot of this stuff and getting creative. And you do see a lot of it in like Seattle and Portland, but kind of seeing maybe some chefs that were trained out there and kind of coming back home and putting their own takes on it is really cool to see. And so I hope that keeps progressing, because everything's right down the road. And so when stuff's in season and we've got a couple of these restaurants, like Crafted and Couchy Canyon and stuff that are literally using whatever's in harvest and creating new menus weekly, it's really fun to be a part of. So
yeah, and if you don't have foodies as friends, you can just go to Miners Drive-In.
Totally, right? Get a massive burger the size of your face and a milkshake that weighs 3 pounds. So
it's good stuff
to the wind.
Yeah. Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. I
no
first heard about Bale Breaker in 2018 when Marshall from Brewlosophy came and visited you guys and talked all about you, and I was so excited to
cool.
We talked earlier. I met your sister, who is also an owner and founder of the brewery, back at GABF in 2019 and or at CBC in 2019, and it's great to finally get to experience your beers and talk to you about the brewery, and this has just been awesome. So thanks a lot for joining us. What do you want to plug for Bale Breaker?
Oh, cool. Actually, I do have a fun plug. Normally I might plug Sun Gaze, but we already talked about that. So, but I did see you guys are talking to a lot of my buddies over the next month. And so, like guys like Single Hill, right? Bridal. Are you guys talking with Wandering Hop or Couchy Canyon?
We are talking to both of them.
Oh, sweet. You're talking to all four of those guys. So that's very cool. So I am going to totally do this plug. Our Bale Breaker, we've a few years ago started a collab series. We do about like 3 big release collabs that we put into 16-ounce 4-packs. It's usually just a big, just smack you in the face IPA or hazy IPA, right?
Of course.
And right, because why wouldn't you? And so this year, though, for our 3rd edition of Friends, we're actually doing Friendsgiving, and it's going to be us and those 4 breweries. And so we are literally in back and forth right now about finalizing the recipe. We have 2 recipes that we're going down, and we are back and forth on whether it's going to be hazy or West Coast. So I don't even know yet, but that's going to come out a couple weeks before, about maybe a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Limited release just for the holidays, but it's going to be, all 4 of our closest buddies in the valley getting together, making a beer for the holidays, and pulling out all of our tricks. So hopefully,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I thought that was a cool segue. I saw that you guys are talking to most of those guys, so I was like, we're doing a fun collab, and so it's really cool. We've got a great brewing community in Yakima. And so this is just a fun way to celebrate it with all of our friends.
Well, I mean, here we're literally going to call that the Brews Less Traveled collaboration, because that's all 5 of the breweries we're featuring this month from Yakima. So
awesome.
if anybody's in the Yakima Valley, hit me up.
Very cool.
Ship me some of that beer.
Totally, I will. Yeah,
I'm gonna hoard it all for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll make sure you guys get some. It should be out mid-November. We're hoping to brew first batch late next week. So.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about that, see more about that. That's great. I can't wait to talk to all of these awesome breweries that you've spoken highly of, and I've already tried some of the beers. Great stuff.
Yep. They're all doing good stuff. So.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Yakima episode 1 in the books. Thom, final thoughts.
There's so much awesome to look forward to. I can remember my first time when I was like 5 years old, driving in the Yakima Valley, hitting Toppenish and getting hit in the face with the hop smell. I hated it when I was 5. I love it when I'm 48. So let's
go
get all those hops in there and let's drink some great hoppy beers.
Totally. There's another plug for Yakima. It's fun if you love hop aroma. If you're here all through the fall, they're pelletizing all night long, and you can walk out of a restaurant in downtown Yakima in the middle of November, and it literally smells like a glass of IPA because they're pelletizing hops 3 blocks away. So one of my favorite things.
Greatest. Go to Yakima. These episodes every month just basically turn into travel tourism promotions. Go to Yakima, specifically in the fall.
Totally.
Please do.
Get those fresh hop beers.
Yes.
Pretty amazing.
Seriously. So you can follow us on social media at Brewvana. Make sure to head over to brewvana.com for lots of great stuff, including the beer club. You can help support the show while also getting to enjoy the same great beers that we feature on the show. Get to drink them right alongside of us. And also check out the 12 Beers of Christmas and Hoppy Hanukkah holiday boxes. We're going to be drinking for 19 consecutive live streams in December. You say that doesn't add up. Eight days of Hanukkah, 12 days of Christmas. Well, I'm going to take a day off. I'm not going to stream on Christmas, but from the 26th on, I'm going to stream for the rest of the 11 nights of Christmas, and we got 8 nights of awesome Hoppy Hanukkah content. So check those out. Great beers from breweries that were featured on this very show. We'll also be back next week with our next featured Yakima breweries. 2 breweries next week. But until then, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries. And for our streamers, check out that link in there. Write us some reviews, please. We need reviews.
If you love this, hit some reviews up on there so more people can know about it. We can send more beer out into the world that doesn't get that far usually. The best thing about this for me, that's the other way I'm in on this. I'm the fulfillment manager. I'm the one who ships all your beer out to you. So this stuff that's hidden in my neck of the woods right now, Pacific Northwest, getting that out to other people is an amazing opportunity, because a lot of these beers you can only get right at the tap room. So thank you, Kevin, for getting us a couple of beers so we could send that out so people could enjoy it. I'm completely biased. I love the Pacific Northwest. I think our beers are the best. I'm probably going to toot that horn quite a bit over the next four weeks. So,
Thom, that's why you're here. That's why you're here, Thom.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kevin. Thank you guys so much for having me on. That was a lot of fun, and gladly be back anytime. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Have a good night. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah, you too. See you guys later.
See ya.
Peace out.
Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.